Hi, Trisha here, and in this video I'm using watercolours to paint this fantastic picture with paper dams. What are paper dams? Well, keep watching to find out. Okay, so I'm using a watercolour paper here. It's about 300 grams paper. It's just an offcut of paper, so any size you want to work on really. I've got my watercolour brushes and I've got some various palettes here of watercolours set out. As always, my palettes are super messy because I reuse my palettes over and over again, so I've added some extra colours, but these are mainly things that are just left on my palette. So what I'm doing is I am initially doing direct painting. So there's no sketching here. I am just painting straight on to the paper. You've got to have a little think about what you're doing first, so I would suggest take a few minutes, plan out your design, whether it's a little sketch to the side or just in your head where things are going to go, and then you can start painting. The idea of direct painting is much more of a sketching type of painting where you just work directly onto the paper. As I said, you haven't got any sketching underneath or anything, but you're just using the brush to sort of draw and create your coloured marks. The other thing that I'm doing is, because I'm painting this whole thing direct, so straight on, everything is wet. All of my paint is completely wet, so I'm not waiting in between for areas to dry or not. And so what I need to be careful of is that the paint doesn't bleed into each other. So initially here I'm just using this yellow, but as I add other colours in, I don't want them to touch each other and bleed. Now, you might want that to happen. If you do, then go for it, go crazy, but I don't want it to happen. So I especially don't want like the centers to bleed into the petals and change the color. So what I'm also doing, along with painting direct, is I'm using paper dams. You probably do this anyway and you just don't realise it. So if you do sort of little sketches with your watercolours, you definitely do this. And what it is you're just leaving a very small, tiny, thin amount of paper in between each of your marks. And that paper dam stops the wet paint spreading across into another area of wet. Now you can drip colours into other colours while they're wet and let them move around, and that's perfectly fine, but anywhere that you want the colour to just stay put and not to bleed into another colour, you leave a very, very small little paper dam in between. As I say, I think you probably do this already and people don't sort of think about it, but it is a technique, and that's what I'm using here. And I'm going to try and do the whole picture where I create these paper dams. It creates quite a nice effect really, a little stained glass type of effect to the image, just because it's all outlined in these sort of white sections. I'm going to leave you here now to watch the rest of the video, and I'll come back later. So you can see here that I'm swapping between brushes, and I'm doing that because the actual mark that the brush makes is a different size and a different shape, and that really works well with this where you're direct painting, that you can put down the mark that you want to and creating the shape all in one, rather than maybe like you would do where you would kind of fill in a section. I'm using the whole brush here to make the shapes and remembering to keep those white spaces. This is a really good exercise for people who sort of keep forgetting to keep their white spaces in watercolour that you can come back into later and work into. This is a great exercise for leaving lots of white space. Okay, so I think I need to put some flowers in here. I've got lots of space around here now that I'm going to fill it with leaves and stems and things. And actually, it's just going to be a mass of leaves. So I'm going to put some tiny flowers in here just to fill this up. Apart from my sunflowers and my roses, my other flowers are completely made up, so don't ask me what they are. Especially the blue ones. Don't know what they might be. Leave a comment below if you can identify the flowers. But yeah, I'm going to try and fill up some space here so that it's just not a mass of green. Okay, so I'm putting some stems and things in here just because I kind of want to connect everything together, and I want something for the leaves to go on. I've just put these leaves at the top where those sort of hanging blue flowers are, and I've realised that I'm not really sure where I'm going with the leaves, so if I put some stems in, then the leaves to the different plants can kind of go in different directions, and hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense, maybe. So I've tried to vary the size and shape of the leaves that I've put in. I think one thing that I'm realizing now is for this image, what I should have done is change the color of the leaves. I have got some darker and some slightly lighter leaves, but they're not massively different in color. So I think if I'd have mixed up some different colors here, I'd have had some differentiation between the leaves. So trying my best now to squeeze some in, and again I'm trying to work as close as possible, leaving as little gap in between without each of them touching and turning into one big blob of greenness. Right, annoyingly, I've got larger and smaller gaps in my paper dams, so I've got some big areas, and I feel like at the time when I was painting, I was trying not to let things touch at all, but now I'm realising that some of those areas are a little bit big, so I want to fill something in, you know, and just squeeze up a little bit closer to some of the colours. I still don't want to touch my other colours. I want to keep it with these paper dams, so I don't want anything to spread. A lot of my paint, as I'm moving around, the paper is drying anyway, so they won't touch and bleed into each other. But I want to keep to that sort of the plan, which is to have lots of paper dams, but I don't really want these massive chunks of white. And as I said earlier, the actual leaves, I didn't get enough contrast, so I'm wondering if I can split them up a bit with a bit of colour. So I'm putting a little bit of brown behind here, which might be a fence or the ground, who knows. I didn't want to put more green in, basically, so so I'm trying to put a bit of colour to split these up. Let's see. So I'm getting to the end now, nearly done, still fiddling about as always. Check out any of my other videos right at the end for much too much fiddling, which is not necessary, but I am getting to the end here. And you can see how the whole thing now looks like a mass of lots and lots of different leaves and flowers. So do create your own design. I'd love to see what you produce, and let me see on the student chat room. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, then please click like. Don't forget, subscribe to my channel to see more art videos.